Hi, the focus of this class is our modern lifestyle and how it interferes with the practice of yoga. First, we need a better understanding of the ways we can use our bodies, and then we have to understand the role of stress in our lives, either mental stress or physical stress, and how these variables might define or interfere in our sense of well-being. First, I will connect this subject with our history as a species. At the very beginning of our history, when we were organized as small groups, families, and tribes, we were very highly exposed to nature and nature's forces. At that time, our bodies were highly capable to adapt. Our adaptability was very high, and therefore our functionality was also very high, and we were highly self-sustainable. By then, nature itself have noticed that our bodies were at its peak of performance and development. And therefore, we were ready as a species to grow internally, mentally, neurologically. So our brain development was ready to start. Our bodies are a fantastic tool. So fantastic that even nowadays, our brain keeps growing every day. We keep increasing our inner capabilities more and more every day, every week, every year, and our bodies remain capable to support that. I will read a few things for you. There are many factors that have contributed to the expansion and development of the human brain, such as the ability to make tools, dietary needs and changes, and other cultural traits not identified by archaeology. Furthermore, the differentials of Homo sapiens were social complexity, food collection strategies, and symbolic communication. We did not hunt, but we hunted collectively as well. Many of these changes have occurred under extremely stressful situations, and now we know that stressful situations, they impact body development as well as brain development. Biological processes linked to stress can affect how nerve cells grow, survive, communicate, and can differentiate from one another. They can alter the availability of protective neurotrophic growth factors, development of synapses, which are the junction of neurons, in addition to the levels of neurotransmitters, myelination, which is the coating of nerve fibers, and even the production of neurons in adults, according to the role of stress in brain development, the gestational environment's long-term effects on the brain. And what exactly is stress? According to the endocrinologist Hans Selye, the term means an unspecified reaction of the organism to any requirement. For him, the stressful stimulus can trigger different responses in different organisms. Depending on how people respond to this stimuli, they can turn into positive or negative stress. And this is very important because this means not all types of stress are bad. According to the article, physiological and psychological aspects of stress produced by Sally Terzina Araldi Favassa, Nady Armiliato, and Lori Kalinin. Negative stress is also known as distress. It is the body's negative response to the most diverse factors. This type of stress triggers effects such as anxiety, fear, anguish, pain, shortness of breath, and even panic attacks. On the other hand, positive stress is called eustress. It is the body's positive response to different factors, and when properly stimulated, bodies and minds can reap benefits through stressors. And this is so important in our practices because this is what we will be learning. We'll be learning how to stress a joint or a set of joints or even our brains in a certain way that triggers positive responses only, in a way that makes the body as well as the brain to feel that they are properly aligned with nature, and therefore nature is able to flow through. On the article Endocrinology of the Stress Response by Evangelia Charmandari, Konstantin Tsigus, and George Krosos, the adequate responsiveness to the stress system to stressors is a crucial prerequisite for achieving a sense of well-being, good task performance, and positive social interaction. That means that our bodies and minds can perform better when stimulated by positive stressors. Using joints, muscles, stressing out these areas or these parts of our systems properly, exposing our systems to different stressors aligned with nature, like fasting, cold baths, proper pressure applied in a joint, in a muscle, exhausting the system sometimes, as long as it has a meaning in nature itself, is always a great source of result. And you might trigger more life force from those activities. Even to be in a steady position, studying for hours, and therefore stressing out the brain in a way the brain likes to be stressed out. So you can do those things. You can apply logical and intentional stress to the body as well as the mind. When a joint is used in alignment of its own nature, the reestablishment of the proper mobility or the development of the mobility as it's supposed to be in nature originally, in our ancestral bodies, that is positive stress, and that is exactly what we do. We provoke in our joints a positive reaction when we demand from the joints what the joints were designed to experience in life. Yoga is the alignment with our ancestral nature. And embracing that, and furthermore embracing our evolutionary potential, means we need to remain highly adaptable. Adaptable in all senses and in every single cell of our bodies. The world we live in is in a constant metamorphosis. And that is highly significant to our practices, because we have to understand all these changes in the way we live and use our bodies in order to understand exactly what we need from yoga. It's impossible to pinpoint all these changes. However, 4 or 5 historical events stand out and give us many clues so that we can understand how we got here. I'm talking about the cognitive revolution, the agricultural revolution, the scientific revolution, the industrial revolution, and nowadays the technological revolution. All these landmarks, they really changed the way we live and therefore the way our brains are operating as well as our bodies. The changes are highly impactful in the way every single joint of our body works. cars, chairs, airplanes, backpacks, cell phones, and lately the home office routine. All these things are highly impactful, biomechanically speaking. The more sophisticated we become as a society, the more we move far and far away from nature and from our ancestral bodies. And that means nowadays inflammatory diseases, herniated discs, joint degeneration, chronic issues, the impoverishment of our innate, powerful health. Not to mention depression, anxiety, repetitive thought patterns, and the fact that we sometimes start living with our nervous system locked in only one mode of operation when we should be operating in balance between activity and passivity. This imbalance means eventually we will be burning out. Definitely, throughout the history, we've been facing challenges. We've based our evolution in the idea that we should be safe and that we should be comfortable. And there is no problem with that, although the peak performance of our bodies happened back then when we were exposed to nature, when we were living and sleeping on the floor, we were walking bare feet all the time. And we need some of those stressors in our lives in order to perform at our optimum level. Yes, we do have extremely comfortable beds, and we do have perfect shoes, but maybe our bodies, they really need to be adaptable to the floor, and maybe our feet really need to be adaptable to all types of soil and surface. And that level of adaptability is something we might be able to recover. Remember that nature has created us to face stress productively. I believe that the positive stress that our feet soles really need might be one of the main reasons why our health state might be upgraded dramatically. Our shoes are not only depleting mobility, they are depleting life force itself. The reestablishment of the mobility in our feet will impact blood flow in the core as well as the periphery of the body. The mobility of the feet will be impacting the quality of life in our ankles, knees, hips, and therefore the whole spine. So this is not about you getting rid of your shoes. This is about the reestablishment of the mobility you've been designed by nature to have, to enjoy. And I truly believe that mobility is one of the main cranks that keeps life flowing properly in our bodies. The process of practicing yoga is the process of getting rid of this harmful effect that the excessive comfort is bringing into our lives. And now, being very precise, what does the Kaiut yoga method do? It gives your body the right potential in your current lifestyle. Not in the context of thousands of years ago. We have to understand that. Thus, you are able to explore your body potential for the reality you are in. That means because we've been so comfortable for so long, nowadays, even when we are highly functional and feeling healthy, our body is carrying inside a quite fragile aspect, a fragility that is in this joint, in that joint, maybe everywhere, and we are unaware. This is why we are going to reestablish mobility, but understanding the current moment. Every single asana or yoga pose is designed in this method to touch exactly the most fragile areas in our bodies that have been created by this modern lifestyle. Areas that are related to the fact that we grew most of the time sitting, and therefore that might be considered one of our most fundamental traumatic experiences. Understanding that fragility is key to the process. We don't want to change anything. We want to relieve the system from a fragility that does not belong. Understanding all that is highly important because if the use of the human body, if the way we grow has changed so much throughout history, that means yoga has to change and has to evolve as well. This is what my work is about. In the next class, we will talk about the autonomic nervous system. And it's important to understand about that because our practice will be more mindful and intentional.